What happens when you give a media personality and a sex therapist a podcast? You get Spill the Tea, a bold, unfiltered space where no topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the messy, hilarious, and heartbreaking realities of life. Will Nash and Maria Orrego serve up real talk with expert insight, hot takes, and a whole lot of tea.
No, I mean, I will say this. My birthday's in January, and I always have this thing where I now do keep my tree up until the second and a half week of January, because that's when my birthday falls. It just makes me happy. Your apartments, your home is more cozy then, right? But I get it. It is Valentine's Day. This is the Valentine's edition of Spill the Tea. And I'm just going to ask you out the gate.
Okay, we're going. Let's go for it. What are you asking me?
What was your worst Valentine's Day date experience? Have you had a date on Valentine's Day?
I have had dates on Valentine's Day, yes. My worst Valentine's Day experience. Ooh, I would say the one that comes to mind, and I'm sure there's probably some that I've just locked away and don't want to talk about ever in public or even recognize. I was dating a guy. He did the whole, like, let's go out for dinner for Valentine's Day. I'm going to get you gifts. I want to, like, lavish you in love during Valentine's Day. And I was like, great, this sounds beautiful and wonderful. And so we went out for dinner, and he got me a bracelet and he got me flowers. And I was like, this is wonderful. It's going in the right direction. We are like, this is a great Valentine's Day. And then the bill came and he asked the server to split it. Yes. And it doesn't end there. And to put the appetizers on my bill, because I'm the one that wanted the appetizers. Will, your face.
I cannot believe he had the balls to do that to you, especially on Valentine's Day.
He did. He did. And it was incredibly shameful. I didn't even know what to do. I kind of like froze. I had no clue how to handle this. I think the worst of it all, though, was looking up at the server's face when he said, let's split the bill and give her the appetizers. I think she was also very offended and confused and had no idea what to do in this situation. And when I talked to him about it, he said, well, I got you a bracelet and flowers and I ran out of money, so you have to pay your bill.
Oh my gosh, that is a brutal Valentine's Day. So you paid it. I'm guessing you had to pay it. You had no choice.
Well, yeah, like I wasn't gonna like dash. Like, yeah, of course. I was again like fully in shock. So I paid my half, and then obviously we didn't last very much longer after that. And I was fully embarrassed. And I think the worst part of Valentine's Day, if I'm honest, is the fact that then you see your friends the next day and they all ask you, how was Valentine's Day? Thankfully, this was before social media, when you actually publicly like displayed your love and affection. So the embarrassing part was coming home and having to tell friends, family, what my beautiful Valentine's Day date was.
Oh my gosh.
That's my tea. That's my worst Valentine's Day story.
Yeah. I have, like you said, I don't think he lasted too long in your life after that budget Valentine's Day date.
Oh, that's a hashtag.
Right? I mean, it really, like, budget for him. I mean, he should have been paying. I guess I'd be old fashioned in that way.
So I think mostly too because he's the one that asked to go.
Yeah, that's always the question, right? Like, who pays?
I didn't request this, right? Mm-hmm. It was his offer. Anyways, that was my worst. What about yours? Do you have one, or the worst maybe Valentine's Day gift?
I don't know. Like, I feel like it's not so much the story of a date, but I remember, and this is kind of going back to like, I was newly out gay, and I had previously I had been kind of low key in relationships, so not sharing that with people. But then I remember once I was out, I really liked this guy that I was talking to, and in my mind, I don't know why I thought this way, but in my mind, I was like, oh, maybe on Valentine's Day, we were getting to know each other. Maybe I'll ask him out on Valentine's Day night.
Oh, wow. Wait, like ask him the question or ask him to go out on Valentine's Day?
No, basically like pour my heart out and say, I really like you. I know we've only been kind of chatting, texting for a few weeks. So it was like I was so nervous to do it. And
so brave.
Well, and it was like, it was like early in my gay dating life as well, right? And I was thinking, okay, you know what? Like, I didn't necessarily know a lot about him beyond what him and I had shared through messages. I didn't actually know if he was in a relationship or not. You can see where this is going. And I was so nervous because probably one of the first people like I poured my heart and soul out to, as much as you can, being, infatuated with somebody over a few weeks of chatting. And I found out that he was in a relationship.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. On Valentine's Day.
I know. I was pretty upset, but I set myself up for it. Like, I completely set myself up for it because in my mind, I was like, it's going to be the thing. It's like, I'm going to finish dinner and I'm going to like send a message and it's like, we're going to do it. We're going to go through with it. And yeah, so that was kind of like my saddest. I don't know if it's the worst because I think worst as like what you went through. But I was definitely upset after that. And I probably listened to like a whole bunch of like sappy 90s love songs, ate some chocolate, drank some wine, and went to bed. But yeah, I mean, wasn't meant to be, right? Wasn't meant to be. You got to put yourself out there. And I was stupid enough to think that Valentine's Day would have been a good thing. Because here's the thing in my mind, had he been single, had he been interested, it could have worked out really well.
It would have been a beautiful story.
And it's funny because now thinking back, I mean, I'm single myself now, but like thinking back to that, I'm like, how did I even do that? Like I in my mind, I was just, because I was like a fresh baby gay at that point in time. Right. So it was just like, yeah, I had been in a relationship. I dated here and there, but it was like, I was so fresh to the scene. But yeah, so that was my sad story.
Well, I applaud you for doing it, though, for being courageous enough to actually say, like, I'm going to put this out there. It doesn't matter what comes of it. It's Valentine's Day, which also adds a huge amount of pressure and expectations. And you did it. As a little baby gay, you did it.
Yeah. And trust me, on this podcast, the Spill the Tea podcast with Bill and Maria, there are many more rejection stories, many more heartbreaks to come from yours truly. I am happy to, if you're sitting there right now and you happen to be streaming this on Valentine's Day or Valentine's Day weekend and you are depressed, you are upset that you don't have a date or that you're not in a relationship, you're not alone. And I know that's a cliche, but do not let that define your happiness, because I think you really have to be happy for yourself. And yeah, was I crying in my glass of wine with my bonbons? Absolutely. But you move on. So
you do. And you know what? You set your expectations up for the Valentine's Day weekend too, right? So if you're listening now and you have the weekend, or even if it is like you're listening on Valentine's Day, you set up your own expectations, your own mindset for what this weekend can be. I will say, though, don't just dismiss it. Don't be one of those people that's like, oh, I don't care about Valentine's Day. No, everybody does. And that's okay. It's okay to admit that it could hurt, that it's okay that you might be on your own. You might be single. You might be on a date. You might be having the worst date of your life. You might be listening to us right now, coming home from a very embarrassing date where someone asks you to pay for half the bill, right? Or you may have just poured your heart out to someone that you love, right? And you got rejected, but it's okay. That will pass. There's nothing special about this day that won't pass.
Yeah, be like Will Nash, where you can pour your heart out to someone and be depressed and in bed by 8 p.m. on Valentine's Day night, right? But and now we have a podcast to share all of these disasters. And of course, if you have a disaster, you can always send us a DM at the Spill the Tea Pod, right? That's how you reach out to us. You were talking about huge expectations, and I feel like us everyday people, Joe Schmoes of the world, if you will, you and I, and if you're watching or listening to this podcast right now, our expectations, I think, are nothing compared to what some celebrities do, because you see it like the next day on Instagram, and you see when money is no object and you have $1 billion to spend on your other half, and listen, like, celebrities are lavish, like, what are Beyonce and Jay-Z doing? Rihanna, A$AP Rocky, like, what's going on, right? Like, how much money are they spending? Like, what do you think about that? The idea of like expectations and, when we see these celebrities or people of power putting it out there, like, is it kind of lame? Or you're like, well, you know what? You're just living your life and you have the money to do it, so why not?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on everybody else, right? Just like media does in general, right? We all feel the pressure of it. And Valentine's Day just comes with that pressure if you're in a relationship already. Yeah, when money is no object, of course, it's lovely to walk into a house full of roses, right? Or having a cello player in your living room while you dance the night away. Like, of course, those are beautiful thoughts and beautiful things to do when money's no object, right? But the comparison that we have, even just to our neighbor who might have a completely different financial life than we do, we compare those things. And I think it's lovely if that is your life and it is genuine and it's not a PR stunt, first of all, because showing that kind of stuff online as like a way to gain traction, followers, love from strangers, not great. But if it's genuine, go all out if you can. But I would never break the bank for Valentine's Day. So if you're listening and you are, like you said, a Joe Schmo that like has like a normal bank account, do not go over the top and add pressure on yourself just for a Valentine's Day gift.
So can I borrow $5,000 after we record this podcast? I'll pay you back.
You can profess your love to.
I can't spill my secrets before I do it.
Okay. We'll get to hear about that after you.
Next week. Next week. I think that's her way of saying no. I think that's Maria's way of saying no. Sorry, Will. Love you, but not that much. It's interesting. Now, we talked about, me being out on this podcast. And one of the things that has kind of come up is we actually had a question about this. We were posting about our Valentine's Day questions, is asking about the difference between, I guess, heteronormative. Is that the right word?
Yeah, that's the right word. So heteronormative and like the queer community. Yeah.
And honestly, the answer to that is obviously there's a difference in terms of who you're spending your Valentine's Day with, like your partner. If you are gay, if you are queer, if you're a lesbian, you're spending it with someone of the same sex. But in terms of how you're celebrating it, there's really no difference. I think that if you're a gay man, if you're a lesbian, if you're bisexual, if you're trans, just like anyone else, you can come up with your own ideas. Maybe that is, having a movie night with the girls if you're single, or maybe you could have a night at the drag bar. Like, those all are very like stereotypical things, but it's really no different. It's just spending your time with your loved one, whether that's dinner, whether that's a drink, whether that's, watching a movie on the couch. If there's some differences that I'm missing out on beyond the obvious ones, I would love to hear about them. But I think that at the end of the day, it's just spending that time with someone that you love, someone that you're interested in, and, honoring that on Valentine's Day. I mean, and it truly just is it, for, say, someone who's in a relationship who's male, female, that's going to look different to the next heterosexual couple. It's the same way if you're a gay couple. Like, it,
do you think the expectations are a bit different though? Because I think that sometimes, like in a heteronormative like relationship, right? Sometimes, this is a generalization, so nobody come at me. The girls do have some expectations when it comes to Valentine's Day, right? So that adds pressure on the partner of like, I want the roses and the chocolates and the stuffed animal and the hotel away. Like, do you think that pressure and that expectation is the same in the queer community though? Do you think that couples put that generalized pressure on themselves?
So the thing I'm going to say too, and again, don't come at me, don't at me. We're always like, at us, and we're like, don't at us. But no, in all seriousness, I think that if, I have more friends who are in the gay community versus like the lesbian community, though I do have friends in that community as well. And you can kind of put it in the category of queer. I think that in a lot of cases, when it's like two men who are together, it could be a little more chill. But if it's like a woman and a man, the expectations might be a little more casual, just with that dynamic. That's been my experience. I mean, I have, friends who are in relationships who do identify as gay, and they don't really do a whole lot, or they might buy like a small gift for one another, or they might go out for dinner. But again, it's not on a larger scale. Again, I'm speaking with my own experience and with friends of mine in the community. I mean, gays, we listen, like, we love Christmas, okay? Like that's our time to shine. Like that's our time to shine. A lot of us love Halloween. I mean, give me Christmas, gayest holiday. Let's do it. Right. Like,
Oh, I love that.
yeah, I mean, so gay that my Christmas tree is still up in the middle of February.
There we go. Yes. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Exactly. But that's it. And again, I'd love to hear other people's experience in that community, or even if you're not in that community, maybe you know people who are celebrating differently, right? And celebrate the way you want to celebrate. Like, honestly, just live your life, be yourself. Now, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay. What's my
Because
question?
this is a media personality and a sex therapist. What is your advice for couples or singles during this holiday? A lot of people, and you might not like this term, but a lot of people call this a Hallmark holiday. How do you get through it, whether you're single or whether you are in a relationship?
Ooh, I love that question. So I will say that this comes from experience of having, let's say Valentine's Day, like this year, falls on a Friday. My Monday through Friday the next week is all couples and singles telling me about their Valentine's Day and how it failed their expectations. Now, what I've learned to ask is, did you communicate your expectations to your partner or even to yourself? So if you're single, right? And most of the time, I'm going to say 98% of the time, no one has communicated what they wanted, expected, and needed out of this holiday, which obviously then sets us up for failure because we didn't tell our partner that we expected lavish or that we expected relaxed or that we expected like romantic and lovey or we expected like something sexy and fun, right? If we don't tell our partner, please stop expecting them to read your mind. Because they can't. That is impossible. It will not happen. So my biggest tip is if you have an expectation, do not expect your partner to surprise you because they will fail. So give them your expectation, what you're looking for, not the details. Let them have like an ounce of like surprise and like that romance that can exist. And if you're single, write down your own expectations of how you're going to love yourself, what you're going to do for yourself, how you're going to enjoy this weekend without the pressures. I would also advise, if you're not having a great weekend, if you're single or in a relationship, stay off social media.
But it's so hard. It's so hard. And the thing is like the one thing that I really took away from that was communication.
Yes.
Tell us, us guys, I'm saying not gay guys. Doesn't matter how you identify. Men are not always the best at communicating. Now, me, I feel like I'm a pretty good communicator. Not, I'm not in a relationship right now, but I feel like I'm very vocal in that sense. But
you're dropping these hints so that people fall into our DMs and ask you for a beautiful date on Valentine's Day, right? Is that what's happening right now?
I mean, I feel like this is the second or third episode that this has come up about. I honestly am not doing this podcast just to get more dates. I'm really not. Although sometimes the pool is looking more like a desert. But what I will say is that, you got to learn how to communicate, right? Mm-hmm. Learn how to communicate. But is it harder now more than ever? Because again, we're all on this 24/7. Mm-hmm. So you're not communicating always in person. Mm-hmm. Is it, I don't know, is the communication, is it always on the guy? Or are there a lot of women in relationships too who are not that great at communication?
Oh, I feel like, it's equal. And I think when we say that women are better communicators, I think that we mistake communication with talking. And again, please don't come at me.
I love it. I love that you said that.
But it's true. Talking is not communication, right? So if I need to communicate my needs and my wants and my desires to you, I need to actually learn how to communicate those to you, which means I actually need to know them in order to then articulate them to you. And most people are not self-aware enough to actually know what they want, so they can't communicate it to their partner. So I would say, let's not generalize that men or women are better or worse. Let's generalize the fact that all of us do a lot of talking, not a lot of us do a lot of communicating. And that's very important in the difference of a relationship.
I love that. Honestly, that there's no more that I think we can say on that, because we're not pointing fingers. We're not pointing the blame. It's really taking a step back and thinking about, okay, am I coming home and just asking how your day was, or how are the kids or whatnot? But it's like, no, like communicating what it is that you want and what you expect from your relationship, no matter if it's like a random Wednesday or if it's Valentine's Day or Christmas, right?
Exactly. And practice that on Valentine's Day. Tell your partner what you want.
Absolutely. Now,
Hmm.
I know what we want is I know that we've had a few people send us some DMs on Instagram at the Spill the Tea pod. I got that right, I
You
think.
did get that right. Yes. I love the DMs that are coming. I love the questions, the spicy stories that are coming. We're not going to have enough time to get to all of them.
I know, ask us anything, right? Ask us anything. But in truly ask us anything. We'll try and answer it depending on what we're allowed to do ourselves. But this is something that has come in, and I'm going to share this with you. I'm really curious to know what you think about this one. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's spill the tea.
Okay, let's go. All right. I've been dating my boyfriend for a few months, and we've talked about fantasy stuff. I'm interested in exploring some of those fantasies, but I'm worried about being judged or making him uncomfortable. Is Valentine's Day a good time to bring up a new level of intimacy? Sexy time, sexy time. Take it to the next level. Let's not be boring.
I love that. I'm going to say just like blanket statement. Yes,
Yeah.
100% Valentine's Day is actually the perfect time to do that because there's an expectation again of
Yeah.
making it different and fun and a little bit more spicy, romantic, right? There is less room for failure if you bring something up like that if he's already on board with exploring some fantasies.
I mean, what's wrong with a little bit of a fantasy, right? And what's wrong with at least giving it a go, seeing if it works out? It might be something that you think is going to be really hot and steamy, and then you actually try it, and maybe it's not.
I feel like there's a story behind that one, Will.
There's stories for everything, but I'm not thinking of anything specific. I swear to you, I'm not thinking of anything specific, but I do know that does happen. I do know that does happen. Or maybe it's going to be, an absolute, everything you wanted it to be. And you're like, okay, so see you on the 15th.
Yeah. Well, and it unleashes something different, right? And if you're capable, again, communication, right? If you can
Yeah.
communicate your fantasy, if your partner can accept that and communicate back what their fantasy is, and you get to play, yes, use Valentine's Day because you got the whole weekend as well. Use the weekend to have some like really great experiences. And yes, sometimes what we have in our head or what we watch online is not going to work in the bedroom for all of us. So you might fail. It might be hilarious. Just get up and try again.
I think that people have all these fantasies from corn, and it's
Yeah.
one of those things, and it's one of those things where it's like not always the way that it is, and that might be a fantasy that's more so with yourself, not with somebody else. Like, let's be real at the end of the day, right?
True. I
So,
love like when people get interviewed though, and like the corn actors get interviewed, and they also explain like, no, that wasn't pleasurable for anybody because we were in the weirdest position ever, and it doesn't hurt. It hurts, and I got a cramp, and I was lost for half of it, but it looks good on camera.
putting my back out, right? Putting my back out.
Mhm.
No, we did get quite a few DMs, so this is another one. I think do we have time for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do another one. Let's do a special Valentine's Day episode.
I recently started dating somebody new, and our chemistry is amazing. However, I'm worried they might be moving too fast sexually. Doesn't say whether this is male, female, or otherwise. We've talked a little about boundaries, but I'm still unsure about how to handle things on Valentine's Day. How do I keep the passion alive without rushing things?
Ooh, I love that. Will, what do you think? There's a theme here, I feel.
There is a theme here. I think it's I believe a lot of this has to do with the pressure of Valentine's Day and the expectation, which, as we've said, may or may not have been communicated effectively. This person is worried that they might be moving too fast sexually.
You know what you could do, and this could be like a fun thing? Take sex off the table for that day and make it sexy. Make it a day of like teasing and playing and exploring, but take sex completely off the table.
Okay, so wait, you actually kind of got me hooked here, Maria. Is like, are you saying like plan to not have sex and just kind of like everything but?
Exactly. Yeah, just have some fun. Take sex and the pressure off of it, and then just enjoy the day of exploring, and then make it into that game. Like, we are now going to engage in sexual activity today
Yeah.
together, but we don't get to do anything that might end the situation. So nothing penetrative, nothing like that. We're just going to have fun and play around with each other, and then just make it a really fun, sexy play day. And then your boundaries are respected as long as the two of you are talking about it. You can both explore what those boundaries are. It opens the communication line of what boundaries are for both of you and how fast or slow you want to go. And you still make it fun and spicy.
And really, how soon is too soon? I'm joking if you're listening, if you were the one. Well, I mean, kind of joking. I can say that for myself, but I think that, that really is up to the individual. And, we have to say it. You should never feel pressured into anything sexual, whether that is, an act or whether that's actually sex itself on Valentine's Day or any other day of the week. Right. So I think that's something that should be considered.
But on that note, though, I love that you said that, when is too soon, or it's not too soon or something. I think if you're feeling pressured and you think things are going too fast, listen to that, because it might be telling you something different about the relationship. It might not be that you don't want to engage sexually quickly with this person. It might actually be that you don't want to be with this person.
Yeah, it goes deeper than the actual, the sexual aspect of it, right? It's you put this big pressure on yourself, even before he or she does, about the act of it. But then it's why are you so removed from that idea and you don't want to even think about it, let alone engage in it? So that's a very good point as well.
Yeah.
So the other thing is I don't, are we going to talk about what's going to happen, our next podcast episode? I know we haven't really done that yet.
We can do it. Yeah. Let's share it. Let's tell everyone what we're going to do.
So if you've enjoyed the Valentine's edition of Spill the Tea, there's actually going to be a episode that follows this. And we're going to have a few more different scenarios that you have sent in and that we have obviously want to help you out with, professional advice. And someone, I used to say plays a therapist on the radio. Now I say plays a therapist. I can't even say, I don't know, plays a therapist on a podcast, but I feel weird saying that I have a therapist in the room with me here. So I don't know. But this is kind of fun too, right? So grab, that bottle of wine or whatever you want to drink, or eat sparkling water. That's what I'm drinking right now. And, some chocolates and kind of cozy up. Even if you are single, that's okay. And just enjoy this edition we've coming up with Spill the Tea. So
we'll share some horror stories, some questions. And if you are single or you had a horror story on Valentine's Day, then you can feel like you're in community with all of the questions and the stories that we have bringing up. But what's your last sip for today? Well, what do you think? What is your takeaway from our Valentine's Day edition / Christmas tree in the background?
I have been single many of Valentine's days, and I think what I'm trying to say is don't put so much pressure on being with someone to the point where you just end up on a completely, if you don't want to, random date just because you feel like you have to. I think enjoy it in whatever way possible, whether that's surrounded by other loved ones, maybe that's friends, maybe that's family, or maybe it's a you night or a you day where you go do some self-care. It doesn't have to be expensive. Maybe get a pedicure, get a manicure, or, watch your favorite movie, listen to your favorite music. It doesn't have to necessarily be the pressure of being with someone. And yes, I do say that as someone who is currently single, but I think that so much pressure goes onto it. And remember, not with a lot of these relationships, things are not always as they appear.
Yes, I love that. You're so right. Whatever pictures and posts and stories you see, I can guarantee you as a therapist, there is a lot more going on behind closed doors.
You know what? Let me tell you this. All these Facebook posts, Instagram things, celebrating your anniversary, your wedding, whatever. I've been to many weddings. I've celebrated my friends who are in happy relationships. I've seen ones that are, and I know, and I've seen ones that aren't. But social media, it's, showing your best side. And most people who have to post consistently about the relationship are not happy in their relationship. I'm not saying you can't post about your partner. I probably would be doing the same thing. But if it's overkill,
it might be telling us something for sure. Yeah.
What about you?
I'll do my last tip for the couples that are listening. Do not set expectations that you're not willing to communicate with your partner. Communicate those expectations, have a conversation, plan together if you have to, but please do not end up on my couch on Monday morning telling me how you hated Valentine's Day, but you never told your partner what you wanted.
Because then Maria is going to rein you in. This has been a lot of fun. And again, we hope you can join us for the follow-up Valentine's Day Spill the Tea edition part 2. And that's tea.
That's it for this episode of Spill the Tea. If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for more candid conversations. Got a burning question or topic you want us to cover? Slide into our DMs. We're always here to spill the tea. Follow us on socials at the Spill the Tea Pod, at Will Nash on Air, and at Sex Off the Pedestal.